women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding...
Oh my gosh, can you hear me now?
Things, when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. All those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
They did not fact check it with President Trump. That is malarkey.
Vice presidential debate in just a moment.
Testing, testing. Hello. Okay, there we go. Yeah, wow, a whole bunch of lies just came out of Waltz's mouth. Okay, there we go.
Gailey has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen.
Got some stupid commercials.
Whatever happens in East Palestine.
Yeah,
But it did.
Thank you.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing or bronchitis?
Dude, is there a way to skip a commercial in the middle of a live debate? It's crazy to me that the average American is kept from some of the most important news with these commercials that are almost completely irrelevant to most people.
Watch me die of cancer. At least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay.
Yeah, well, Tim's answers have not been stellar either, but I was in the middle of my most intense driving when he was talking, so it's like I feel like I'm being somewhat unfair at the moment, but or not Tim, Vance.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS app.
Stories that inform.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
Dude, these commercials, I do not consent. In fact, we're gonna go ahead and just mute it and wait until it goes past. There should not be commercials during a presidential debate, especially one this serious. Like seriously, what the freak? Are they taking a bathroom break or something? Maybe they're taking bathroom breaks. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I hope that's what they're doing.
Space Tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will.
I'm wondering if I could play like Skyrim or something while we do this. I have to see.
She's the first black woman on the Supreme Court, and she's determined she won't be the last.
They better not be talking about Kamala. She is not black. She has a black father. She is partially Indian and partly black. And then they tried to attack Crump. They had to try a Crumpet. They tried to attack Trump because he pointed that out because she said it earlier that month. It's like that she was an Indian. It's crazy, and not Indian like Native American, by the way. Indian from India. For some reason, I literally can't capture that screen right now, so I'm just gonna freak out.
We want to turn now to America's gun violence epidemic. The leading cause of death for children and teens in America is by firearms. Senator Vance, you oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding
That's fine.
responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah.
On that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly
Should be held responsible.
Local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially...
No, Vance, come on, man.
Sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families.
Dude, can we get an answer from you?
And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just how do we actually do it?
Wait, so both of you are okay with disarming people?
Worries me about this epidemic of violence.
Metal cleaner?
Gross majority, close to 90%
Uh-oh.
in some of the statistics I've seen.
Is it in that box out in the garage?
Is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that
Okay, I'm glad he brought that up.
Thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns
Okay, that's true.
is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can...
I mean, I agree with that.
Take guns out of the hands of
especially with how many terrorists the Biden administration has actually let in. And frankly, Obama, too, wasn't very good with the border. He deported a lot more people, but he didn't secure the border.
This is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Senate parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've...
Actually, your first responsibility is to protect the rights of the American citizens. And because people can't get jobs and the economy is falling apart, taking guns away is the last thing that we need to be doing, because that will remove people's right to protest it as AI replaces them.
Enacted.
I am for violent protection of our rights, absolutely, if it need be.
But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea...
Are you kidding me? The NRA funds most of the research.
Here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids... It's abhorrent, and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough. When we know
Where was it?
I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have...
Holy crap, you hear him swallow?
high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have
It absolutely is.
weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools
Them high shelves will get you every time.
Is that what we have to go when we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills? They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms, and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's doing okay. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own countries.
They have a better repertoire than Trump and Kamala.
Okay, first of
That's
all,
for sure.
We have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason.
Yeah, people being able to afford things is really what's causing it.
Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here.
Yeah, no, we need mental health care. We've been fighting in inner cities forever. It's time to improve the lifestyle of citizens.
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was NRA.
He's been friends with school shooters. Did you hear that, Ryu? Did you hear what he just said? I think he misspoke.
After football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is
the reason why we have those shootings is because that's not where we live today.
Number one, where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should.
Yeah, parents need to be held accountable for that.
Making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health.
He said, he accidentally said that he befriends.
Being kids, we owe it to dad.
He accidentally said that he befriends school shooters. Here, hold on.
We can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry.
Dang nabbit, it went back so far.
Have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland.
Oh, be nice to your dad. He's getting old.
Frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland is, okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take.
Okay, it's coming up. Get ready. It's when Tim's talking.
Do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position.
Teasing, arguing. All right, fair enough.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Right here. He just said he became friends with school shooters. Oh my gosh.
Gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football.
No. We've backed it up twice now. He misspoke, most likely, but it was funny.
Cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues.
Yeah, that issue is easily solved by punishing parents that don't lock up their guns.
Doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is
or secure them.
Sometimes it just is the guns.
It really isn't the guns, dude. It's not. Wow, that's crazy.
I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this.
The government wants your guns so that they can kill you easier. Like that. That's the only reason that they say this stuff.
Contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the
Why'd you need
campaign promises
a Band-Aid?
$1,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said,
Oh, that's not good. Sorry about that, Ryu.
Is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the
What we need to do is seize the assets of these big companies, not give people more money. We need to seize these assets and make it so they can't own homes that they resell like company-wise, so they artificially drive up prices. And the fact that he's not saying that really angers me.
And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school.
Yep.
All of those things in the long
It's
run
true.
end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to...
It's just not, he's just not going about it the right way.
Blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case.
Actually, we can blame them for that because they're taking up housing that they haven't earned and they're not part of their country.
But we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim.
That bill can be passed under Trump now, too. I mean, it will work in the same amount of time, so there's no reason to pass it under Biden's presidency.
It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to
she
all of these
continues to do
policies
nothing.
to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of
I agree with that.
completely unaffordable. Now, you
They aren't the only reason I think the same.
change the equation.
I mean, fine, I guess.
If you lower
Accident prone.
Donald Trump
Me too.
says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal immigration, is think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief
No,
for American citizens.
and he's wrong there. The housing has been artificially inflated. It's not a lack of jobs issue. It's a lack of fair pricing and total monopoly.
To you in a moment, but Senator, where are you you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used
We
for
need
national parks, and they're not being
parklands.
used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president is letting in
Well, of course, that's not
migrants,
true. And again,
that
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump.
Okay, he's wrong. He's lying.
Again, blaming and not trying to find the solution. I was going to ask though.
We know for a fact that they're up.
To drill and build houses in the same federal land. And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the countries we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. Like there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that.
And Vance is right about that. Housing is not a commodity. It needs to be a right.
Investments that gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time.
Actually, 99% of them.
But Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify. There are many contributing.
They don't just come here and not have a place to stay. Like
that migrants are part of this problem.
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share.
do the migrants just evaporate in the left world? Like, do they just disappear once they enter America? Like, they live somewhere.
Immigration and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to...
Bro, neither of them are really addressing the issue, and that's corporations are buying up public land and driving up the prices to absurd numbers.
To build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity, but the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with
that's not the only issue, Tim. Come on, man.
I'm sorry.
Or Vance.
This is a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. That in some cases, many of those are local.
You're not sure where they evaporate to, though?
Which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen, we have a lot to get
Neither one of them gave an appropriate answer there.
But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, "I have concepts of a plan." Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing...
You better have a better answer.
...health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. Look, it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice and will also drive down costs. We talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged.
Okay, I can actually see what he's saying there.
I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done. But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care. It's not perfect, of course, and there's so much.
And my meds were more affordable under Trump. That is true.
To put in place some better healthcare policies. He's earned it because.
But quite frankly, as I've stated multiple times, everything was more affordable under Trump that I was purchasing.
I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what
actually, most doctors don't know how healthcare works. They only know how the medicine and stuff they work with works. Most doctors are very pissed at the medical industry for that reason.
He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain.
He's right about that. I do remember Trump trying to get rid of the bill, but I do remember him stopping doing that.
Sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when
what did he just say?
I've got a concept of a plan. It cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept. Because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy...
Damn, Tim, started off so strong, but now you're really not making sense.
Pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They're figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
Governor, thank you. Senator, you have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
We currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president, inflation was low, take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership.
Does anybody know when this debate ends?
In a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look,
now it is.
And the question about this of young people or whatever, that's the individual.
That wasn't the question, though.
And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then what happens
think the
is
individual mandate's a good idea?
I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you, Margaret.
Yeah, and all the rest of us suffered because of it.
We have a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret?
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you've said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start. The family works better. We stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota, and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take it.
He didn't have the baby though. Oh crap! Remind me what you were saying. I'm paying attention because I don't know. I think I'm actually siding with Tim on this one.
We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this.
There should be parental leave and paid. If you are having a kid, you are trying to contribute to society, and that should be rewarded. Now,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support
there's still problems with that, but
for how long should
it should be only 5 days pay at most.
Employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my
And if they have more than one kid and they don't have over a certain income, then they shouldn't qualify for the leave stuff.
Care about this issue. I mean, look, I
maybe more than two, actually.
Very personally, because I'm married to a beautiful woman who's an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator, and I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families, and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time.
Actually, about 40% of women don't even want kids anymore. Like, and I can't even say it's because of those issues in particular.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have to support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare because, look, it is unacceptable. And, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past.
It sounds like he said he had to go to work 5 days after his kid was born, but the guys don't have the baby, so unless the mother is unavailable to stay home, then one parent should still go to work. Oh yeah, I think he was suggesting that both parents get 5. I think they were trying to say both parents, not just one.
Thank you.
But I would agree that both parents need it off, and I know the guy didn't have the baby, but often women can't care for themselves right after they've had a kid, so it would be appropriate for the men to also have the day off to help them care for themselves. I know that once my wife gets pregnant, I'm not going to leave her side until at least 5 days after, and that will be to go back to work.
It's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the
I did not hear the question. Dang nabbit.
Credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut.
Yeah, see, now that needs to happen.
The Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue
That's great.
with high economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money.
Yeah, funny enough, both of their
want to provide child care options for American families.
both of their answers have actually been okay.
Expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket
All right.
has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the
Yeah, that's a bad idea. That one honestly is not fair.
It's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's 5,000 or 6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarship types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's worse.
It also encourages people to have kids who should not be having children.
Those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you.
Stop replacing them with AI then.
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors,
Yeah, I don't believe that actually.
and Democrats certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance,
Yeah, it's because they're all in cahoots.
the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
I mean, if every governor, then yeah, we wouldn't have a choice.
We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's amazing.
Why did Tim look hurt when he looked up? That was kind of funny.
Because of disagreements over
How could you?
big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens, and it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people.
Yeah, we also have proof of that from Twitch that the government was paying people off to say that the election was fair, and that that Twitch also Twitter straight up lied about stuff, and that other platforms were doing it too. So there was not a consensus that there wasn't cheating during that election. And I've started to notice there's only seems to be election interference when a Republican wins. I remember when Trump won, the entire 4 years, the left was screaming that our election systems were unsafe and unsecured. And all of a sudden, once Biden won, everything was fine.
Governor?
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator. But
me too, man.
There's one though that this one. Is
These two have, honestly, if Tim was running, I might consider voting for him too. Like these two, I don't really have an issue with as much. It's upsetting that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are the options right now.
Police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there.
Yeah, the police fired into the crowd. That happens once you assault somebody.
Governor's residence, and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence."
Oh my gosh, the January 6th stuff has been debunked so many times now, including Nancy Pelosi admitting that it was her fault it happened. I cannot believe they still bring it up.
Democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other.
Yeah, not if you think the other side cheated. It's like, I cannot get behind that. That is just absurd.
Your political opponents already laying the groundwork for people not accepting.
Yeah, the problem is that those political opponents, half their names are on the Epstein lists, and the other ones were friends with Diddy. So at some point, arrests need to happen, yeah.
Settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first
You adore Trump. Oh, Nedry. Here to exaggerate as usual. Yeah, those two are doing fairly well. Yeah, they have like a nice repertoire, and they're not chewing each other out. Like, this is kind of refreshing to watch. But the Kamala Harris and Trump debate were like watching two children screaming at each other. These two obviously are more capable of debate.
Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country,
and hopefully Kamala will be executed. Or Trump. One of the two. I should say hopefully, but that's probably what's going to happen. Trump was friends with him. Actually, Trump was only in 2 photos with Epstein, and he was recorded visiting the island one time and never returning, unlike most of the names on those lists who Trump actually wants to arrest were on there multiple times. So I can't help but feel Trump got there and realized what was happening and left. I don't think he's completely moralless. I think that he's not fit to be in office. But I think that Kamala is infinitely more unfit. Because, quite frankly, once again, I could still afford things under Trump, and he was in the middle of a pandemic. Like, I don't get how the left can't admit that that's, like, miraculous.
Thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. This is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen.
Oh, come on, man. Here we go. Now Tim's starting to lose me.
Saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask, did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer.
For you, Tim.
About censorship. Obviously,
yeah.
I think that there were problems in 2020.
If I'm not allowed to speak, then of course I'm going to start to be violent. I have a right to say things. Trump is, I'm not saying those people weren't there either, but I'm not sure I trust any name on it. Well, I mean, I'm down. I agree with you there. I don't trust any name on the list. It's why I don't like Trump. Part of the reason why I didn't like Trump in the first place is because I found that out.
That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the
oh man, Tim, you did so well, man.
Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond.
Vance was right.
Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is
you should be monitoring it.
Who refused, and now again, and this I'm pretty shocked by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not. It's not anything anywhere.
That's too bad, Tim.
Donald Trump's.
I was pretty cool with Tim until this. He's still pushing the January 6th nonsense, and it's like
to certify that election.
Let it go, man.
Isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is
Trump did not foment revolution. If he did, if he was fighting, then why did he?
Where is the firewall?
Eventually lament
he could do
on the same day he was supposed to. Like
an election. And his vice president's not going to stand to it. That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala
I don't think you'd like it if I did.
She wouldn't pick me if she didn't think I would do that. Because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen.
Bad ending for Waltz, but he has some good ideas.
Candidates, the CBS News vice presidential.
In my opinion, you all, of course, are entitled to your opinions as well. Wait, there's this. It isn't over. This still goes. Listen, I love it. I love it when conservative. Yeah, I bet you do, Nedry. It's one of the only ways that the left has actually really made a massive foothold in this country in the first place, was silencing people who disagreed. And one could argue the Catholic Church did that, establishing their foothold, but excuse me.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine? Just
oh yeah, let's stop these commercials. I'm not in favor of these commercials. I don't support this channel, and do not buy their product, as they are forcing us to watch commercials during one of the most incredibly important debates of our lifetime, kind of invalidating it and kind of making it feel like a joke. So please don't buy their products and don't support that. News channels should be that, important issues, and not giant advertisement reels. Also, I have temporarily suspended my ads on the channel so that these debates can happen uninterrupted. So, thank you, America, for watching. So, was that the end of the debate, or are we still going? What time does this actually end at? Vice presidential debate. October 1st. Who has the cheapest car? That is not the information I am looking for right now. Is it on the channel?
Hey, Utah homeowners, are you worried that your
Blah, blah, blah. Are you worried about poo-poo? Oh, no, they poo-poo.
In a positive future of this country, and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy from Bernie. And I'm as surprised as anybody. Supported the democracy up, and thank you.
So, Governor Walz, you are first. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most
Sorry, we had to back it up.
Thank you to all of you. If you're still up and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of folks in between there.
Yeah, I don't want to pay for YouTube Premium because the money doesn't actually go to content creators. It goes mostly to YouTube. I do not support advertisements on the... Like, if somebody was to stick an ad to my car without my permission, I'd shoot them in the process for damaging my property. Well, I wouldn't react nicely. Probably wouldn't shoot them. But point being is, if you wouldn't let somebody do that to your car, why do you let them do it on your YouTube channel and to those videos unless you're getting paid for it? I have a little more respect for Twitch because they're giving us at least half the ad revenue. Although I haven't really ever seen that, so I have some questions about that too.
And then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me.
Sorry, thank you for letting me know there, Nedry.
Option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward.
Said the idiot before he marched into hell.
She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance.
Hey, puppy!
I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe...
Were you there for your grandmother's experience? People keep coming back to people that were here 200 years ago. It's like, it's crazy to me. Like, let's talk about modern society, please.
That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that too has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now,
yeah, the fentanyl crisis is insane right now. That it is absolutely absurd.
Day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have...
I would say her and Biden, but they ran together, so you could infer that.
But have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both.
Yeah, it's
for
why I tell
participating
people
in the
not to
only
buy
presidential
Twitch
debate of this
Turbo.
election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until election.
Yeah,
day.
well, I mean, that would
Please
make
get
a lot
out
of sense,
and vote,
Nedry,
and for
because
all of us
Kamala
here
didn't do
at
very
CBS
much.
News, thank you and good night.
They're walking up to each other right now and saying, we easily have the worst two bosses on the planet. So are you going to take your boss out first, or should I? Waltz is like, oh, no, not yet. Too early for that. Too early. We have to wait till they actually get elected first. Yeah, that's true. Man, that would be hilarious. Man, my guy on the course didn't work out. Yeah. Well, that was a lot more refreshing debate that I think there was things in there I could easily agree with and disagree with. I did not keep score on this one because, once again, I was stuck in my car driving home late for this, which I apologize, people. I couldn't tell you who won this debate as far as who I agreed with more or less, because, quite frankly, I think I agreed with them both pretty much on what they were saying. The bigger issue that I have is, are they going to follow through on it? And I agree with Vance more that Trump followed through on his promises than Walt's Kamala Harris remarks. And a huge turnoff for me is mentioning the January 6th stuff still. That is a big turnoff for me. That needs to stop being talked about, or we need to start talking about releasing the people who were in that, who were miles away from the event in the first place, and the people who were abused in their jail cells while still awaiting trial. That is a violation of human rights that even the UN might get involved in with. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. So those things need to be addressed before I will start talking about the January 6th stuff any further. And if we do start addressing it, then maybe there's more to look at it, because then I'd start believing that people were being treated fairly. But until that time, the January 6th arguments are a huge turnoff for me, and quite frankly, I don't believe should be given any attention anymore. We have it confirmed on video, police officers welcoming so-called protesters into the Capitol building. We know for a fact that the police officers fired into the crowd before any of the police officers were hurt, and killed a veteran who was not being violent at the time. This was absolutely can't think of the word right now, but we know for a fact that this revolt was infiltrated by FBI agents long before they had got to the Capitol building. At some point, you got to ask yourself, was this actually, even if Donald Trump had said something, how much of this wasn't just staged and just lied about? It was just, I don't know. The January 6th stuff is I'm done with it. I've seen enough of it. I've watched every video that there is of it online. I've looked up every single interview that I could watch. I don't know. There's probably ones I can't get because they're attached to cable or something. But it's just an absolutely absurd talking point to keep trying to suggest that Donald Trump is some kind of dictator. If he truly was, and he led people like they say they do, we would be in revolution right now. There are way more than enough people to create another civil war. So that is bollocks, and it needs to stop. And questioning whether or not there was a fair election is not un-American. That is something that the left is trying to sell, and I don't buy it. But other than that, the debate went pretty well. You know, sorry I went off on the January 6th thing. Yeah, I thought that went way better than the presidential debates. Quite frankly, we should do away with both of them. Like, I don't know how on earth we got to Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I'm only voting for Trump because he had a 4-year record of being able to do things well and during a pandemic. So I can't imagine what it will look like when he's not in a pandemic and things are going well. So, yeah, hopefully that's how that works out. With Kamala, when I hear her talk and have looked at her past, I really have not seen anything good come out of it. I can't even name a bill that she sponsored that actually helped the American people. So I don't know. Now Waltz on the other hand, I mean, he makes a good point. He's actually running a state that's successful, you know? Their healthcare is actually working. So he at least has that to run on. And if she was to step down and Waltz was to run, out of the two, Waltz would have a good chance of winning my vote. I mean, he makes a lot of sense. Just the January 6th thing was just bollocks. But and then the abortion stuff is a big deal too. They need to hammer that out. But I pretty much, with Vance, in my opinion of Vance, he is not as insane as the media tries to portray him in. These two actually got along more. Like, they shook hands and they actually talked and they even complimented each other. Like, this was a much healthier debate than what the media was prepping us for with Vance. I feel like Vance may have said some stupid things when he was learning how to be a politician. I think he's actually gotten better at the job, which I'm willing to say that, and he admits when he's wrong. And I had a little problem with Waltz because he kind of said I misspoke. I don't know if he was even over there. That part I don't know if I believe him on. Or at least things were vastly different than what he was saying. But I digress. His location at the time is not really a big issue for me, and I don't think it would affect my vote. But the stolen valor part, though, is a potential problem that would affect my vote. But like I said, if they can do the job, then they should get elected at this point. I mean, we've been being run by criminals and a pedophile elite ring that's been absolutely absurd. So at this point, just get somebody in there who can fix those issues at least. But yeah, I guess it was an okay debate. This was better than what I've been used to. All right, everybody. I have to go take a very good doggy on a walk here. And my body is kind of giving out. So I shall go pee, and then I'm going to let my phone charge, and then you all will see me tomorrow sometime. Man, I feel like I got nothing accomplished today. It kind of was a slow day, and not much good happened, I feel like. I mean, there's other good things. I helped people with things, but I've been tired and exhausted and just burned out, so I'm going to call it good for the night. I appreciate you all tuning in. I might stream it a little bit, but if anybody else has any opinions, I'd love to hear them. Text me, Discord, and if there's issues you'd like to hear addressed, I will, or if you'd like me to expound upon any conflicts of interest or anything, please feel free to message me. I'm always down for a discussion and want people to be heard. And if you feel like I've miscommunicated something or that I misunderstood something, I'd love to hear why you think that. So please feel free to message me. Once again, I'm the Real Omega, and I thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful